Morning, everybody. Saturday number 4. Listen, I want to talk to you today about different areas you could deploy your capital and why it would be advantageous. So many times you hear people talk about parking your money, and many times we think that just putting money in the bank it's beneficial, but really it's not, because you can have like $15, $20, $30,000 sitting in an account, and at the end of the year you'll see that you only made like a 7-cent dividend or rate of return on the interest. So money is a currency, just like a current in a river. It's supposed to be moving. It's supposed to always be out doing something for you. So one of the key things we always focus on is making sure that we give our dollars employees. So you're going to employ your capital, but most importantly, you want to park your capital in certain directions to fit you. So what I'm going to do is share with you 3 different areas where you can that's going to benefit you and start building wealth. And the first and information. One of the key things we put our money, information. Excuse me. So one of the key things with that is the more information you have like market trends, and you have economic indicators that you're aware of. By just paying for information, you can avoid potential risk by paying for information. So again, I like to learn from other people's mistakes, other people's experiences. And many times when I'm in a room with people who are billionaires and millionaires, I'm always asking the question of what mistakes did you make? Because that will help shorten your learning curve and that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Here's the deal. I can look at their hand on a hot stove and realize that I don't need to put my hand on a hot stove. So that's the same way I go about understanding business, success, and creating wealth. So this gives you an opportunity to be able to seize opportunities when you have information, when you're well informed. And one of the things I want to talk about too is just give you an example. I went to a real estate meeting when I was 27 years old. It was a conference. I was the only person that looked like me. And I was in a room with a room full of very wealthy, older white gentlemen. And I remember this guy came up to me, and I tell the story often. He came up to me and he asked me, he said, "Hey kid, how much money you make?" And I said, I make 6 figures a year. I was 27 years old. That was my first year making 6 figures. And he just burst out into a hysterical laughter. And I looked at him kind of peculiar, and I was like, "What? I do make 6 figures a year." And he abruptly stopped laughing, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Listen, I'm not laughing that you make 6 figures. I'm just laughing that it takes you so long to do it." So that was a wake-up call to me. That day I gathered valuable information and realized that what I was making annually, I could make that monthly. And it was just as easy to make it in a month than it was to make it in a year. So that's what stretched my mindset to understand that money is relative and that it should be based on a task and not on time. So at that point, I really started understanding, and it stretched my mind. See, once your mind is stretched, it can never go back. Like a rubber band. Anytime it's stretched, you let it go, it goes back, but it never goes back to its original dimension, because once something is stretched, it's always stretched. So I was informed that day. I had to pay to get into that event, of course, and I got information. I also remember learning about a real estate strategy that helped me out a lot too, that saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And I share that strategy often too, about how to pay a mortgage off in 7.5 years. It's very simple. You take your mortgage, multiply it times 4, divided by 12. That number that you now come up with, you pay that strictly to the principal of your house, and that'll take a 30-year mortgage down to 7.5 years. See, that's information, but I had to pay for that information. But how much money has it saved me? How much money has it saved my clients? How much money has it and will it save my children, my grandchildren, and my subsequent generations as it relates to wealth creation, based on the significant information that they now know and will know about mortgages and how to strategically pay for real estate holdings and properties. So what that did, that led me to the next point. It led me to access. That's the second place where I put my capital. I put it in access. I put my money in places that will get me in rooms and in environments and around networks that I need to be around to enhance my wealth. So with that, again, collaborations are key. Putting your money towards assets will put you in positions for partnerships, collaborations. It'll also put you in positions where you can have access to opportunities that are not readily available to the general public. I've had many opportunities to do that. One I can think of right off the top of my head was when I started my security company. I remember I had access to this meeting, and it was privy information on a city level at that time, but because I had access to that room and I was properly positioned, I was ready because I had previous information. See how this stuff ties in? I had previous information that put me in position so that when I had access to that meeting, I was able to build a security company at that time, which we made $250,000 the first year. So most businesses will not make $250,000 the first year in inception. So we were able to secure that contract that really positioned us to start building massive family wealth at that time. And the third thing is assets. You want to deploy your capital to get you assets. Assets are things that put money in our pocket. A liability takes money out of our pocket. So many times we often put our money or channel our money in directions that's going to be liabilities and not assets. So this positioned us to start investing in real estate holdings, start investing in other businesses, other income producing assets. So the whole purpose, and one of the good analogy I like to use, I learned from Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad like 20 something years ago. He talked about buying a sports car. He said he could have simply went into his savings account, took the capital out, and bought the sports car. But he said instead of doing that, he put the money into an income-producing asset that created capital that would afford him to be able to buy the sports car. After the sports car was purchased, he still had possession and ownership of the income-producing asset, which continues to make money. So instead of just going out buying the car, let's say you buy a real estate holding, you buy a hotel or a small apartment building, that funds the cost of the sports car. But after the sports car is done and paid for, you still have possession and ownership of the building that will continue making you more money. You can buy more cars with it if that was your desire. So that's one of the key things that you have to do there. And I share a story with you there. I like to share stories that are relatable. I remember I had a buddy of mine, he said, hey, look, how much money you got in your pocket right now? At that time, I had like $100 in my pocket. He said, hey, let's go buy a car. I said, man, there's no way possible I can buy a car for $100. He's like, yeah, let's go. So he took me to an auto auction. And sure enough, I bought a 1983 Honda Civic for $80. So here's what happened. This was way back in the day. This was when things were done on eBay Motors. That tells you how long ago this was. But I took that car, I bought it for $80. Still had 20 extra bucks. But I ended up buying that car and putting it online on eBay Motors that evening. The car sold. I sold it for $120, I think it was. Matter of fact, I bought the car for $60 because I doubled my profit. The car sold for $120 online. And here's the cool thing. Because I had access, because I had information, I knew that asset that I was buying, I could leave it on the property for up to 7 days before the buyer came and picked it up. So what I had, in essence, was an on-site car dealership that I didn't have to worry about paying for. I wasn't responsible for it. So that car could sit on property for 7 days. I sold the car that first night. They scheduled to come and pick it up like that weekend. I think this was like a Thursday or Friday. They were going to pick it up in a couple days. So I already had the $120. I went back to the auction the next day, purchased a second car. The second car, I think it was a Mazda Mirage. I bought that car for like $120, $130, and I flipped it and sold it for $320, I believe it was, that second day. So now, same thing. The car can sit there for 7 days. Buyer came a couple of days later, took that capital, and the third car I bought was a Q45. Q45 I bought for $300, and I sold it for $800. That was a gold Q45. Then I took that money and I bought 2 more Q45s that were on the lot. There was a black one, and then there was a very unique one which was called something blue. It was like a coconut blue. It was like some weird blue, but they only made a limited amount of those, and it had white leather interior. So I bought those. I ended up flipping that, sold it for like $1,800. Took that $1,800, then I started buying more luxurious cars. I started buying Lexus. I started buying BMWs, Mercedes. So I still used that same $60 and didn't have to apply new income, new capital. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and I started buying more, like I said, luxurious cars. So again, that's because I had the access, I had the information, which then allowed me to be able to deploy my capital into assets. So these are 3 areas that I think will truly benefit you if you do start deploying your capital there, to be able to start creating more income, growing the money, because it goes back to the money rules again. Here's the 3 rules to money. First, you got to be able to make money. Secondly, we have to be able to hold on to money. And third, and most importantly, we have to be able to grow the income. And then that is how you start building exponential growth in your wealth creation. All right, guys, I know that was a powerful message, great impact, but the key thing is you have to apply it. You have to put it into application. All right, guys, I'm Dr. Sean J. Harris. Make impact, make money while you're doing it.